Okay, if we're going to do a second round of quiz positions to test our knowledge on the opening roll. So uh, let's look at this one. We've made the bar point. Our opponent jumped out to the 10, and we have a 3-2 to play. Again, the point is, what's the best move, and what proverbs do we have to point to that help us out with them? So figure out what your move is and try to find the reasons why. And then pause the recording and let's see if you get it right. I'll explain it shortly. Okay, so we have 3-2 to play. The first thing is to hit. That should be, obviously, we want to hit our opponent, particularly who's trying to escape his back checker, so we want to hit. And the question is then, what do you do with the 2? And so the answer is, it's a good time to split. We don't have a sign to split necessarily here that we typically see, but it's generally always good to split at some point. And the alternatives aren't that great. The second best alternative is to stack it on the 8 point. It's not really a stack; it's only 3, but a spare there is not hurtful, and it's not a big error to do it. The third one is to come down with 2. But the problem with this one is that we are stripping our midpoint, which we'd rather not do when we have an alternative. So the best move is to hit first and then come out and split. Okay. Next position. All right. 2-1 to play. We've made our 5 point. We've hit our opponent, and he's got 3 back. What's your play and why? I'll explain it in a minute. Okay. This should be, hopefully this should be clear. We have a great opportunity to hit our opponent. And as you can see, anything that doesn't hit the back checker is a blunder. Even some that do hit the back checker are blunders. But it sends our opponent all the way back, puts him 4 behind our beginnings of a prime. And so that should be the first move, and that should be clear. You want to hit him there. And then what do you do with the 2? Well, a number of good moves, but it turns out that the tiger play is here. This is the strong tiger, and because we're placing the checker that is a blot in a position where we want to make it next. If we can, there's a good chance that black will dance with at least one of the checkers on the bar, and if he does and doesn't hit our 4, we're in an extremely strong position. We'll probably double him out next time. Second best is still not a bad play, not as strong as the tiger play, but it brings the checker, unstacks the midpoint, and makes an outfield point. And so those are good moves to make. The other proverb here I didn't mention, fighting for the good point. This is a 4 point. This is a strong point, and since we've already made the 5 point, it's the next point that we really want to make. So we're fighting for the good point. Okay, next one. Okay, 5-1 to play. This is a common situation. Our opponent is split, and with the 6-2 coming out to the bar point and down 1 from this midpoint. So what do we do, and what's the reason? Okay, so we want to hit off the midpoint. Why do we do that? Well, we're going to unstack, breaking them out, unstack the midpoint, take a checker from there, bring it down to the 8 point, and then we want to hit. We're going to fight for the good point. and those are the reasons. Now we have an alternative, which leads to another checker. The second best play, which is the tiger play, the double hit, in which you come down with from the 8 and down, hit off the ace. This is the weak tiger play, because we're leaving the blot in a position where we don't want to, at a point that we don't really want to make. Actually, we're leaving a blot here that as well, which is a point that we do want to make, but we're also putting one where we don't want to make it. But the problem we have here is that we don't have the ammunition to carry through with our threat. Putting two on the bar is strong, but we can't really follow up on it. We don't have the checkers in the zone. We're attacking here with 8 checkers, and that's a weak way to attack. In general, if you only have 8 checkers in those, you're not going to want to attack with that, particularly when we don't even have an inner board point. Sometimes we saw earlier was that we had the inner board point, and that made a big difference, and we were attacking off the 5 point when we had the double 5s. But here, we only have 8 checkers in the zone. Attacking with 8 checkers is weaker. So in this case, just a single hit is the right way to do. Bringing an extra checker in the zone. As long as we don't get hit back, we have a good chance of making either the bar point or an inner board point and getting onto a good position. Okay, next one. All right, 6-5 to play. Again, our opponent has come out to the bar point and to the 2 down to the 14. What do we do and why? Okay, in this case, we're going to do the double tiger, and we're even going to do the weak double tiger. We're going to put a blot in a position that we don't want. The difference between this one and the last one, though, is that we are also bringing the checker down. Now we have 9 checkers in the zone, and that extra checker makes it the best play. The second best play is just to hit once and to bring in another checker in. Now we have 10 in the zone, which is better, except that we don't usually have 1 in the bar, and there are a lot of hitting numbers that come back, which will negate that point. We're fighting for the good point. But the difference between this play and the last play is the extra checker in the zone. Also, the reason these are the top 2 is we're unstacking here. Note that the typical play that we do with the 6-5 early on is to run, and that's not the right play here because we can hit and send our opponent back. So we can hit, and generally we're going to want to hit early on over running. Okay, next play. Next approach. 4-3 to play. What do we do with this? Okay, so look at the options and let's figure out why. Okay, so a number of good things to do. First of all, we're going to fight for the good point. This is a 5 point. We want to fight for it. If we get a 3, we're going to hit off it, or an 8, we're usually going to hit off it. So that's the first thing that we should see. You should train yourself. He slotted the 5 point. We've got to hit it if we can. And now, so what's next? Well, there are 2 options really, actually 3. First of all, the tiger play. We should rule that out because we only have 8 checkers in the zone, and so that's not the right play. It's the weak tiger as well, where we're slotting a point that we don't want. And in this case, we've stripped our 8 point, and we have not unstacked any of our stacked points. So, which would lead us to the 2 options, which are both pretty good. Coming up to the 5 point to slot our 5 point, or coming down here to bring another checker in the zone and to unstack. Both are good. In general, though, you want to do the hit and split, what's called the hit and split, because you're hitting now you've got a good chance of making the opponent's 5. We can make our own 5 or the opponent's 5. There's a fair chance that we'll get hit. If we are hit, we have another checker and a better chance to make that 5. Regardless, our opponent, unless he gets doubles, is not going to be able to point on us here. So that's the hit and split generally is better. We slotted both 5 points, which we want to make, and we should be able to make one of them next time. And so that's why that's slightly better than just bringing another checker down. I mean, bringing a checker down is good, another checker in the zone, unstacking the midpoint, but it's, the hit split is right. Okay, 2-3 to play. What do we do here and why? Okay, so there are 2 good plays, really, and 3 choices that make sense. The first thing you should see is when your opponent has run out to the 4-point, split his back checkers, and land on the 4-point, and you have a 2, you're going to want to hit him. It's almost always the case because we're going to fight for the good point, and that's the proverb there. Then what do you do, though? We could carry on and do the tiger play, but again, that's the weak tiger play, and we only have 8 checkers in the zone, and attacking with 8 checkers is weak, and so we don't want to do that. We want to, if we had another checker in the zone, we would be more interested in that might be a better play to do this, but we don't. We can come up with the back with the hit and split, and that's fine. That's not a bad play. It's about the same as coming down unstacking in this case. So either play is fine. Okay, next one. Double 2s. Okay, this is a tricky one. Early doubles are always tricky, and so let's see if you can figure out what to play and why. Okay, here's another case of we're in the candy store. Lots of good things to do. So let's go through them and why. Well, double 2s, as I said, you can make the 4-point. It's almost always right to make the 4-point if you can. And so making the 4-point is right. Coming out and hitting, it is almost always right to hit with that. And so you're doing, it's a great role. You're accomplishing 2 things. You're on stacking the mountain. You've not only fought for the good point, you've made a good point. You're fighting for the 5-point is a good point, and you're hitting your opponent back. Great role. Why would you do that? Oh, here's another great move. Here you're hitting 2. And you've accomplished a lot. It's a tiger play. And nothing wrong with that play. These are high equity plays, really strong plays. But you didn't, you've accomplished a couple of good things, but they weren't as strong. Making the good point is very strong. Unstacking is also helpful. You have your opponent on the bar with 2 points is far stronger than having 2 on the bar with 1 point. So good play, but not the best one. Here we can make our opponent's 5-point. Fighting for the good point and making the 5-point is very strong. Putting them on the bar is strong too. But as I said, if you're not, and it works not quite as strong on your opponent's 5-point. It's not as good as your own 5-point. But if you're going to not make the 5-point, well, you got to do 2 other things. You didn't make this point and you didn't unstack, and those are the 2 other things that you didn't do that make this a little bit better. Okay. Next one. 3-1. What do we do here? This is a common one, and it's easily mistaken. So what do we do and why? Okay. In this case, this is one of the few cases where you want to make the 5 point and you're not going to hit. It's almost always right to hit your opponent's checker. But in this case, it's not. It's because you're making the 5 point. The 5 point is the strongest point. You want to make it if you can. And you also unstack here. As I said, it's one of the few rolls that we have the opportunity to hit that you don't hit early on. Just to look at a couple of variations. Here's the 3-1. What do we do here? So what do you hear and why? Okay, in this case, this is one of the few points where we don't make the 5 point when we had a chance. Why? Well, we're going to prevent our opponent from making the 5 point by hitting him in here. We're going to put him on the bar and sending him back. So as I said, you got to do 2 or 3 good things if you're not going to make the 5 point. And so those are the things. You're fighting for the strong point on on the defensive side, and you're putting your opponent on the bar and sending him back. And those are the strong points to make. And as you see, it's not even close. That you must hit your opponent. You must prevent your opponent from making that 5 point when you can. It also splits the back checkers, which is good. But it's really keeping your opponent from making the 5 point. Another variation here, 4-2. Okay, what do we do here? Similar to the 3-1, we had kind of the same type of choices, but what do you do here and why? Well, in this case, we're going to hit. In the 3-1, we made the 5 point because we wanted to make the strong point, and that had more value than hitting. Here, the 4 point is not as strong as the 5 point. It's not as important. And so we're going to want to hit. Hitting in this case is more important than making the good point. It also, unstacks and brings the checker down. Those are good things as well. But it's really the 5 point is the better point. The 4 point is a good point, and we want to fight for it. But hitting is better. That's just something I guess you have to kind of memorize. Okay, 2 more to go for this quiz. 3-1. What do we do now with this 3-1? And why? Okay. The key thing here is to recognize and what we are. We made our 5 point. Very good move for our first roll. But our opponent got double 5s and made the 3 point. Now, typically with the 1, we're going to want to either slot the 5 or split. But we're not doing that here, so why not? Well, look at our splitting rules. Our opponent now has 10 checkers in the zone. That's a sign not to split. He also has not split himself, nor made an advanced anchor. Those are signs not to split. So we don't want to split here. And that's the main takeaway here, is that we don't want to split. Why is this the best play? Well, it brings a checker, it unstacks, which is the only thing that we can do really from the midpoint here. It's 1. And that should be clear with the 3. Once you recognize that you should not split here, is to bring that down there. And what you do with the other one, well, we could come forward, but why not unstack a little bit more the 6 point? And maybe this will help us make one of these other points, so the 4 point or 3 point, or some point that we want to make next. And so those are the reasons why. But the key thing is here is to recognize that you have a sign not to split. Got 10 checkers in zone. Splitting here will put you under attack, and we don't want to do that. And as you can see, any splitting move is a big blunder. Okay, last one for the day, another doubles. And these trickles, we've run out with a 6-5. Our opponent has run out with a 6-5. What do we do with the double 3s? And why? Okay. Again, lots of good things you can do with doubles. But the key things here, we got 6 here. Checkers on the midpoint. we really have to move them. And so that's, that should be, I think step number one. We got 6 checkers here, 5 checkers here. We need to move those. That's step number 2. Unstacking is key. Now, the second best move, we have, competing priorities. We could make the 5-point here. That's also a very strong move. And you can see the first 2 moves are very strong. Those are really the only 2 that you should consider here. Because of the unstacking, you have this point here, and that's why you need to unstack there. But this is also strong. Making a 5-point and another innerboard point while unstacking a 6-point is good. Is good too. But really unstack both. When you've got those extra checkers, you really need to unstack them. Okay, that concludes this quiz, second quiz. So hopefully you did well. If you did not, go back and study, practice more, and understand the reasons why.